My last question maybe to you is this. Jews have talked about a third temple to be rebuilt. It's one of the size of the size can't be rebuilt. Do you have a problem with that as a Catholic?
I find it extremely interesting because Ezekiel speaks of a temple and he describes it in great detail, and it's massive. Hundreds of miles long.
He actually gives dimensions.
Yes.
Okay, and that's in Ezekiel 40, chapter 40, I think, to 42.
About right.
Very detailed. So we know there's going to be a physical temple. Okay?
If we take that literally.
Well, yeah, because he was giving dimensions for it.
Yeah.
So many cubits here, so many cubits
You're right. That's why it seems to be.
Now, if there is a third temple, which shows Ezekiel, and you, as a Christian, if you don't accept that, then you have an issue with Ezekiel. If there's a third temple, there'll be the sacrificial system implemented. Okay. If there's a sacrificial system implemented, you've got a problem. Well,
Some would say. However, I've thought about this myself. Firstly, the temple could not be built in Jerusalem as it is. It's too big. There has to be a major geographical, a major topographical shift, because even that wouldn't be enough space. There really needs to be a flattening of the land. It's huge, this temple that Ezekiel describes. But in the book of Revelation, there's a description of that 1,000-year reign of Christ, and it comes after a cataclysm in the world. And one might imagine that the whole shape of the world, as it were, its appearance will change, so that there will be sufficient space for the temple to be put in the land where the old temple was, and yet cross it fully. Then the sacrifice you mentioned that goes on. How could there be sacrifice, you say? Well, here's how it goes.
And we would know that if God accepts it or not, because fire would come down from heaven. We know that. If the fire accepts the sacrifice, we know God's accepted the sacrifice.
Yeah.
If that happens, which I believe it will happen in the near future, please God, well, you have a problem, because Jesus says, I'm the final, it stops with me.
Yeah.
I'm the last sacrifice.
Yeah. These sacrifices that would go on in this new temple would not be sacrifices for sin. That's all been done. These would be memorial sacrifices, remembrances of what God has done for his people. First, the chosen people, Israel. Well, we'd say the once chosen people, Israel. Then the new chosen people, the Catholic Church, the new Israel, as we say. And then expanded to the whole human race, which had survived and accepted Christ after the cataclysm that's described in the book of Revelation. None whatsoever, because sacrificing
animal rights.
Yes, but you know, if Jesus, because Jesus, whatever one says about Jesus, he was a very, very kind and gentle man. Very thoroughgoing in his...
You say that, but he was, you vipers, you this, you that.
Yeah, that's it. Very thoroughgoing in his views. Uncompromising, but never want to say, we're going to pick up the sword and we're going to go after the Romans, or if somebody harms him, he's going to instigate his companions to do them harm.
Turn the other cheek.
Yeah, so we know his character, and yet he was not blanching at the idea of the Passover lambs being sacrificed. He lived 33 years on the earth, and so he saw numerous sacrificing of animals. Sacrificing animals is not a problem in itself. I love animals. I eat meat, but I love animals. I don't think there's any necessary contradiction, because animals are not at our level. So there's something...
You've probably heard of the Noahic laws, haven't you? The 7 Noahic
Yeah, I've heard of them, yeah.
Right. As far as a Jew's concerned, or rabbis are concerned, you as a non-Jew only have to keep 7 laws, and those are the Noahic laws. One of them is actually not to be cruel to animals.
Okay, wonderful.
You're permitted to eat them, but if you do it in the humane way, in the most humane way possible, when you slaughter them. Which would have been the slit of the throat, sudden blood loss, unconsciousness, just the way Abraham did it, just the way Moses did it.
No, that's one. I didn't know what the laws were. That would be one of my favourites then. But I think that we can have the temple, we can have whatever that 1,000 years is, because obviously in the Old Testament it doesn't talk about that, but it does talk about the events of the future in the Messianic time, when the lion will lie down with the lamb. we can assume there's some kind of wonderful era that awaits us. Isaiah speaks greatly about it. So we can look forward to that. In Malachi, there's a sacrifice, the daily sacrifice that's without end. We regard that as a shadow, a reference, an oblique reference to the Mass, because that, of course, goes on everywhere on earth, 24 hours a day, somewhere on the earth, 7 days a week. That's, of course, the representation of the unbloody sacrifice of our Lord Jesus Christ, given once for all for the sins of the human race.